In the silence after the crucifixion, something happened that most of us have never been taught to imagine. The sky had gone dark. The earth had shaken. A man had died, but the story did not end at the cross. What if I told you that after the blood dried, after the soldiers walked away, after the women wept and the disciples hid in fear, Jesus stood again and walked somewhere no human being had ever walked before, not back to Galilee, not yet to the resurrection morning, but into the very presence of God himself. This isn't poetry. This isn't legend. This is theology hidden in plain sight, and it changes everything. For thousands of years before Jesus, sacrifice was the language between heaven and earth. Lambs were brought to altars. Blood was poured out. Smoke rose upward. The message was always the same. Something innocent must die, so something guilty can live. Ancient priests knew this. Historians confirm it. The Hebrew scriptures record it with painful detail. Once a year, on the Day of Atonement, the high priest would enter the Holy of Holies, a place so sacred that one mistake meant death. He carried blood, not his own, the blood of a spotless sacrifice, and he presented it before God for the people. But here's the twist. Those sacrifices never finished anything. They only delayed judgment. They covered sin, but they never removed it. So the question that haunted heaven and earth was this: what kind of sacrifice could actually end sacrifice? What could finally be enough? The New Testament makes a staggering claim that Jesus was not only the Lamb, he was also the high priest. And after his death, something unseen took place. The book of Hebrews says he entered the true sanctuary, not a temple made by human hands, but the very presence of the Father. And he didn't bring the blood of goats or calves. He brought his own. This is where theology becomes painfully human. Just imagine this moment. A son bearing scars, hands pierced, side opened, still marked by love's violence, standing before the Father, not as a victim, but as a willing offering, the living sacrifice. Experts in ancient Jewish law point out something chilling. A sacrifice had to be presented alive before it could be slain, and after it was slain, its blood had to be carried into the presence of God. Jesus fulfills both. He offers himself in life, he offers himself in death, and then he presents himself resurrected, alive, scarred, accepted. This is not a transaction. This is reconciliation. And here is the part we rarely sit with long enough. The Father did not turn away. The resurrection wasn't just a display of power. It was approval, heaven's definitive answer to earth's darkest moment. The Father looked at the Son, the sacrifice, and said, "Yes, it is enough." And suddenly, the curtain in the temple tearing in two makes perfect sense. Because if the one true sacrifice has been accepted, the barrier is no longer needed. No more altars, no more blood, no more fear of approaching God. But this raises a deeply uncomfortable question. If the sacrifice is finished, if it's been accepted, why do so many of us still live like we're retrying to earn what has already been given? Why do we punish ourselves for things that have been forgiven? Why do we carry guilt God has already released? Why do we keep offering fragments of our good deeds when Christ offered everything? The living sacrifice was not meant to inspire religion. It was meant to restore a relationship. And maybe the most haunting part of this story is not what Jesus did, but what he still bears. The risen Christ still has scars. Not because the sacrifice failed, but because love chose to remember the cost. And one day, Scripture says, every eye will see him. Not bleeding, not broken, but still marked. A reminder forever written into eternity that salvation was not cheap, but it is free. And the question that lingers, the one no documentary can answer for you, is this: if Jesus stood before the Father and said, "It is finished," what are you still trying to add? What weight are you still carrying that he already lifted? Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing. See you next time.